making honey puffs, which are a honey-flavored meringue. It's not a historical recipe. It's not from Century of Mormon Cookery. It's not an old family recipe. It's a recipe that I made. And the reason why I think it fits the brief for my little video project here is because it's honey flavored, and you know, Utah is closely associated with bees. Our motto is industry. I pipe the meringues into rustic-ish shaped beehives. At least that's the idea anyway. And I'm making them so I can send them to somebody special in Utah who I think maybe could use a little pick-me-up. The thing about meringues is they ship really well, so if you need to send some love to somebody, you could do this. The way I get the honey into the meringue is by using honey powder. I'll put a link to where I buy honey powder in the description. But the cool thing about meringues is they are infinitely changeable in flavors. So the honey makes them it gets a very heady flavor, and it's not for everybody. In fact, the honey flavored meringues in particular, I can't wolf down as many in one sitting as I can other flavors. You can put in whatever flavor extracts you want. A particular favorite that I've done is orange flower and cardamom. You can use mint and chocolate chip, coconut, really anything you can think of, you can put in the meringues to make them unexpected and fun, or you can just leave them vanilla. But today it's vanilla and honey. And so let's go. I mentioned in past videos, I picked up a tip along the way when you need your egg whites to beat up. One thing you can do or try, because you know they're fussy, they don't always work, is to spray your bowl and your utensils with vinegar to remove any lingering speck of oil, because the oil is what will deflate your egg whites. So we'll start with that. You should know my egg whites are at room temperature, and I separated them a while ago. I'm trying to get some of the moisture to release, to evaporate before I get whipping. So plan ahead if you can. They'll still taste good, but they won't be as fluffy if you don't do it. I've got my oven preheating to 225. Meringues are low and slow for baking. So let's begin. I've got 4 egg whites. And then I'm gonna go right in. I can't see with glasses and I can't see without. I've got a little bit of salt and a little bit of cream of tartar. Put that right in at the beginning. Okay, let's get noisy. A couple of things I prefer with meringues. I like using my hand mixer better than a stand mixer. It just seems to do better. And with the meringues, I'm using caster sugar or baker's sugar, which you can find with your sugar in the baking aisle. It's just very finely ground granulated sugar. And I feel like that incorporates more smoothly into the egg whites. So for our purposes today, and again, I'll have your alternatives in the description, I've got 3/4 cups caster sugar, and then this is 1/4 cup honey powder. And I use it not a lot, but enough. Like, I love to put honey powder just a touch in my sugar cookies. There's a sweetness that it gives that's more unusual than just plain sugar, and just like a tablespoon, and it's noticeable, but you don't know what it is. It's just special. I'm using my fork to get a couple of the clumps out, and now I will mix them together. And from here on out, it's just as you would do with any meringue, where you start to gradually add your sugar. I'll give it a good mix here. Now, you can be as precise or as imprecise with this as you want, just depending on what kind of results you're comfortable with or you're happy with. I do 1 tablespoon at a time, 15 to 20 seconds beating in between each addition. So in with some sugar. Scrape down the edges. And this is a teaspoon of vanilla. I think I'm going to put a little bit of yellow food coloring in just to give a visual cue as to what flavor it is. So I'll go get those and be right back. If you ever want to treat yourself, get this box from Americolor. That is not a paid plug or anything. Obviously, nobody's going to pay me for my 44 subscribers. But the joy that I got when this came in the mail. Now, what do we have? Gold, egg yellow. I think do a little bit of fiddling here. That's cute, but let's see. Let's do 1 more drop of egg yellow. I tend to undercolor things. Until I overcolor them. That is good enough. Just like with the utensils, I'm going to spray down my cookie mats. All right, I'm using, it's about maybe 3/8 or 1/4 inch tip. If I'm making meringues that are not honey flavored, I usually use a tip that's almost 1/2 inch, or you can use star tips, flower tips, anything that's fun. Because I'm trying to get the beehive shape, I'm going smaller. And these are, like I said, there's a headiness to them. And so you want little bite-sized meringues for the honey flavor. At least I do anyway. I'm not a big fan of single-use doodads, but I love this pastry bag holder. Look how beautiful and pillowy that is. Trying to get it in there without smashing down all the air that we worked so hard to put in. So as you can see, I'm using a large pastry bag and I didn't fill the whole thing on the first go around. So try and scoot it to the end without losing too much air. So meringues don't spread. You can put them quite close to each other on your cookie sheet. I'm trying to show you how I'm making my little beehives. It's just a bouncing of the pastry bag up and down to make little rumples. And yeah, they're like 1/2 bite size. They're not going to end up uniform. They're going to be many, many sizes by the time I'm done. It'll be helpful to wipe the tip off every once in a while. While I'm piping these, I guess I'll talk a little bit. The doctrine of the church did not take with me, despite my parents' best efforts. A little bit about me. I was given up for adoption at birth. My birth mother was Mormon. My birth father was not. And the religion was the sticking point. And I have that information because I've developed a relationship in later life with my birth father. But so I was given up for adoption through the church social services into a Mormon home by a Mormon birth mother with the hopes that I would be devout and, but it didn't stick. And let me tell you something interesting. When I met my birth father when I was 35, through my questioning, searching, wondering, studying, worked myself into a worldview and a life view and a perspective that was pretty much exactly his. Isn't that interesting? And I know it was really a heavy burden for my mom, the mom who raised me, to bear, that, it's almost like she did something wrong as a parent because I didn't stay in the church. But having met my birth father, there's really nothing she could have done. My die was set from birth. And there's an interesting generational thing that I think is generational that I've noticed, where the dogma didn't stick with me, but the culture did. And it took me a long time to work around to accepting that. I had to kind of completely sever myself and then come back to my culture and my history. But I find it interesting with the younger generations of Mormons. They are sticking with the dogma and the doctrine, but they're throwing the cultural stuff out the window. And not everybody, obviously. But I think something interesting is the church has been around long enough now that they're going to have to start figuring out how to make room for all of us. You've got the devout believers who are culturally Mormon, and they follow all of the rules and regulations. And then you've got the people that are still believers, but they don't follow a lot of the culturally Mormon things. Or they're cafeteria believers, where they take what makes sense and just kind of ignore what doesn't. And then you've got people like me who I don't buy into the religious aspect of it at all, but there's nothing. The fact that I grew up Mormon in northern Utah particularly means there are things about me that are culturally Mormon, and that's not going to be excised from my experience or the way I live my life. So, there's a stretching and a growing and a pulling that I think has to happen in the church to either make room for all of these different experiences, or you have to start drawing hard and fast lines and cutting people off. And that'll be an interesting. I know that happens. And I know that, for example, with particularly LGBTQIA, etc., youth in the church, there's a pretty high suicide rate. Do you want to make room for everybody, or is the point to not? I find religion fascinating in that respect. Like, how do you determine in religion what are the hard, fast lines? What lines can you cross and still be a part of the religion? And what lines, once you've crossed, you have no association? Like, to me, the idea of Jesus that I understood when I was growing up was love everybody and make room for everybody. That's hard for religions, isn't it? A friend once told me that, to think of it like, when I couldn't understand when I would watch a religious group turn on a particular group of people, or why when I couldn't understand why religion wouldn't be supportive of ways in which we as a society, through government, help those that are hanging on by their fingernails at the bottom rungs. To me, that seems Christian on a basic level, but my friend said, no, you have to think of it like Onward Christian Soldiers mode, where if a group of people can be painted with a brush of wickedness or sinfulness, or if, you can be convinced that they're coming to take things from the righteous people, then you no longer have the requirement to look after them or care for them or make sure that they are in a good place. They become an enemy to God. And then not only do you not have to do the hard work, but it's righteous to kick them out, step on them when they're down, marginalize them. Well, now I'm off on a tangent and my meringues are flattening. Who knows if I'm going to include any of this, but I hate fiddly little things like piping meringues, and so I was trying to make it meditative and I got way off the rails. They're not all cute, but they're cute enough, and the ones that are super ugly, I get to eat. So we'll go into the oven and they're going to stay there for an hour and a half. Okay, I'll see you back here when they're done. Y'all, these are so fun. See how easy they just pop off? And they're crunchy, but then they dissolve. They're a pleasure to eat. And for better or worse, they're so tiny, they go down really fast. Anyway, I'm going to bag these up and get them ready to put in the mail. It's so satisfying to pop them off the baking sheets. Okay. This has the same satisfaction level of popping bubbles in bubble wrap, except it tastes a lot better. Okay, I think that's about all I can comfortably fit. So, box this up, send it in the mail, and hope it arrives with all the love it's intended.